Deadlock has an impressive roster of 38 unique heroes, and all of them have powerful game-changing ults. But some ultimate abilities are simply better than others, and so in this video I want to rank every single ultimate in Deadlock based on how powerful and game-breaking they can be. As with any tier list, please remember that this is just my opinion and you are entitled to disagree. As a matter of fact, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments section down below. Just make sure to keep things respectful. There are always some people who take these tier lists way too seriously and they make a fool out of themselves. Don't be that guy. But anyways, let's get things started with the C tier, and unfortunately someone does have to come in last place on a tier list, and that person in this video is Haze. Now, that's not to say that Haze's ultimate isn't powerful. Every single ultimate ability in Deadlock is very strong, especially when equipped with the right items. But, well, we're comparing all of the ultimates to each other, and Haze's ultimate is simply lackluster compared to most ultimates in this game. And the reason for that is, well, just press this button, and you'll be fine. You'll be completely fine. Haze's ultimate is really easy to counter. Not only does Metal Skin completely shut her down, but you can also stun her out of her ultimate, you can outrange her ultimate, it is very short ranged, or if you're just really tanking, you have a lot of gun damage reduction, or she's firing at multiple people at once, the damage is paltry. Now, it can still be strong with something like a curse, but at that point I would argue the curse is doing more heavy lifting than the ultimate actually is. So, Haze's ult goes to the bottom of C tier. After that we have Celeste. Now this is a pretty situational ultimate because it can deal a ton of damage if you have something to clump all of the enemies up, like a Dynamo ult. But as soon as you cast Celeste's ult, whoever it targets is going to attempt to social distance themselves from the fight, and they don't need to be gone for long. And Celeste's ultimate has an unfortunate side effect of targeting minions very frequently too, if there's nothing else to bounce to. And while trashing minions is certainly helpful, it's not really something that an ultimate should be doing as one of its main features. I mean, Seven can do that really easily just by shooting with his power surge. So, you know, it can be strong, but it's really easy to counter at this point in time. The knowledge has proliferated throughout the community, so it goes down into C tier as well. Apollo's ultimate is pretty dang good early on into a match. It does a big burst of damage, and that curse can come in handy. The problem with Apollo's ultimate is that it does not scale very well into the late game. By the late game, plenty of people have some sort of spirit resist or counterspell or something like that, meaning that the damage isn't very impressive. And the curse is good crowd control, but it doesn't actually interrupt things the way the actual curse item does, so you can't use Apollo's ultimate to cancel something like Seven or Bebop's ult. And so it really lacks a lot of late game utility and scaling, which is why I put it down in C tier. It's good early on, but not super useful after that. Shiv's ult is a tricky one because they keep reworking it, and shoot, they might even rework it again sometime after this video, so take this placement with a little bit of a grain of salt. But the main problem with Shiv's ult is just that, well, A, the execute threshold is super low, and so, you know, sometimes the enemies will die before you execute them, or it might just be more efficient to kill them with regular damage. And then also, they keep fiddling with it in regards to the dash distance, and so sometimes you've been able to use Shiv's ult as a powerful dash to get away, but at the same time, like, an ultimate that's just a dash with a 160-second cooldown or whatever it is not really that impressive. And so Shiv's just kind of a tough case when it comes to his ultimate. It can be very good, it can be very reliable, but at the same time it's just a little awkward. So I'm going to leave it in C tier for now. You could maybe make the argument that it goes higher. By the way, it is raining outside. I don't know if that's picking up on the mic, but we're just going to keep rolling with it. So Viper, her ultimate is a little awkward. It is a powerful stun and interrupting tool, no doubt. You can use it to cancel a lot of the big ults in the game. But unlike every other stun in the game, this is a petrify, which means that for a brief period after the stun hits, yes, the target can't move, but they also can't be damaged, which is just so awkward. Normally when you stun somebody, you want to take advantage of the time that they're disabled to actually load them up with a bunch of damage. That's what you do with characters like Abrams. But with Viper, you can't do that. And so the Petrify is just a really awkward tool, and that's why I put it down into C tier, because it actively hinders your team compared to every other stun in the game. And then the last character in C tier is Mirage. Now, Mirage Mirage's ultimate is certainly one of the most powerful macro tools in the game, don't get it twisted. But the problem with Mirage's ult when comparing it to other ultimates is that while it is useful for teleporting to a fight or teleporting to a walker to defend it or something like that, it doesn't do anything else. The buffs it gives Mirage aren't great, most people don't upgrade the ultimate at all. It's just a teleport button. And, there's only so high I can rank that when we have much, much more powerful ultimates down the line. Now, it's certainly not a bad ultimate, it is a very good ultimate, but I can't see myself putting it any higher than C tier. Now it's time for the biggest tier on the tier list, the B tier. This is where there are a lot of really solid ultimates, but none that are super game-breaking. Starting off with Abrams. Now, this is one of the biggest stuns in the game. It has a big area of effect, it lasts for a long time, and it gives Abrams some pretty good mobility too. It's all around a very solid stun. The reason why I don't put it any higher is because it is also pretty telegraphed, and sometimes the stun can be hard to hit as a result. But the more you upgrade into the ult, the more powerful it becomes. He gets unstoppable, he gets a really big area of effect. It is pretty darn solid and a great tool for countering certain other ultimates, especially those channeled ones. Next up, we've got the two sniper ultimates, Vindicta and Venator. Both of them are good for different reasons. Vindicta's sometimes doesn't feel like it hits that hard, but it is a useful tool in generating stacks of weapon damage, and that weapon damage can make her regular gun an absolute powerhouse. And then we have Venator's ult, which is much harder hitting than Vindicta's, but much more restrictive. You can't just pop it out whenever you want to. It has a true damage component that is really helpful because no matter how much damage reduction or barriers the enemies have, you're still going to be a baseline level of effective that Vindicta simply doesn't have. And so that's why I put it slightly higher than Vindicta's for its killing potential. Both ultimates are very strong in the right hands, especially if you have good aim. And then the next chunk of heroes all have channeled damage ultimates. Bebop and McGinnis have the two most similar ultimates in my opinion. They sit there, they channel, and they do a ton of consistent spirit damage. But the problem with these channeled abilities isn't their DPS, it's the fact that both of these characters are kind of vulnerable while doing it. In Bebop's case, he just kind of sits in one spot and, well, you can stun him out of it pretty easily. He can use Unstoppable later on down the line, but his limited movement speed means that it's hard to chase enemies, especially if they are able to find some cover. McGinnis' ultimate works a little bit better in terms of cover, but it's also super unwieldy and finicky to use. And both of these ultimates are also at the whims of the builds that the players are using, and also the balance of the devs. If they tweak the damage slider too low, then these ultimates have no extra utility and they become really bad all of a sudden. There was a time in Deadlock's history where McGinnis ult was the worst in the game. Nowadays, it's pretty darn strong, but it's just kind of fickle in nature when it comes to the balance in this way. And then we have Mina's ultimate, which is a damage ultimate with a bit better chase potential, especially when compared with her bats, and it does also bring that silence to the table, which is really good, and that's why I have it rated above these other two ultimates. But the bats are so clunky to use sometimes, and this ultimate is also really dependent on building up love bites consistently, which can be more difficult in some matches. It's not going to be as consistent. Finally, we have Seven's ultimate, which recently got a pretty big nerf to the speed at which it's able to reach its maximum range, and that does really hurt. This ultimate is really good for area coverage and really good at applying debuffs to everyone on the enemy team. It does lack single target damage compared to these other ultimates, but I would still say it's the best of these big damage channeled ultimates. Still a lot of counterplay to it though, so I can't put it too high. Lady Geist's ultimate is next in B tier here, and it is a really good defensive survival ult that can flip the tables of a fight. It turns her into one of the strongest 1v1ers in the game if she is able to play her cards right, because, well, if she gets low and the enemies have an advantage, she can flip that advantage right around. But it's not without counterplay. She has to get really close to use it, and if she gets silenced before she's able to activate the ult, then she will just fall over and die. So there are definitely some limitations, but it's still pretty good. After that, we have Ivy. She is able to take one of her teammates teammates and fly them to safety or fly them into the thick of battle, and when she upgrades her ultimate, she gets access to a powerful silence that can be devastating if dropped in the middle of a team fight. It's a pretty well-rounded ult, but it's not without its limitations. If she actually gets shot at during a fight, then she can't even use the ultimate. It goes on a brief temporary cooldown, so she has to be very careful with her positioning, and she can also be CC'd out of it pretty easily by something like a knockdown. So it is good, it is versatile, but there are some ultimates that are simply way stronger, so I have to put it in B tier. And then we have Wraith, a character who's really good at locking down one specific target for a few seconds. This is a pretty good interrupt tool. It is very short-ranged though, and well, Wraith doesn't necessarily want to be up close and personal with some of the big beefcakes in this game, so it can be a little tricky sometimes, especially because after they reworked it, it doesn't actually curse the enemies anymore, so once she throws them to the ground, they will be movement locked. They can't use their stamina or movement abilities, but they can still use a whole host of other abilities and try to kill Wraith that way. So it is still something that can turn the tables and easily win Wraith a 1v1 in a lot of cases, but it's limited in scope and limited in its effectiveness. Good, but not great. Billy's ultimate is really quite good, especially when paired with the rest of his super strong kit. He's able to immediately stop any movement-based abilities as soon as someone enters the radius of his ultimate, and then, no matter how far they run, he is going to pull them back after a set window. Assuming, of course, they don't break line of sight, because if you do break line of sight with Billy's ultimate, well, you will cleanse it very, very quickly, which can be a problem for Billy's ultimate. It really harms the consistency of it. But if you are actually able to pull someone in, then this is absolutely devastating and will likely score you an easy kill. So it is very good, but the consistency is the big thing holding it back. Infernus has the next big stun on this list, and it's another super duper telegraphed stun. He gives you multiple seconds to react to it, but if you get hit by it, well, you're probably as good as dead, because he's going to get that DOT on you and you are going to melt. And the big thing about Infernus's ultimate is actually kind of the opposite of Billy's. It is extraordinarily consistent, because Infernus can be cursed, stunned, anything. He can get scooped up by a singularity, and as long as he casts the ultimate beforehand, the ult will still go off. It's like a suicide bomb. The only way to stop it is to kill Infernus before it goes off, or use some other counter method, whether it's counterspell or simply just getting out of range. So it is still sometimes pretty hard to hit on enemies consistently, but it is a massive threat and a big space-making ultimate, and it can also be a sort of counterplay to ultimates that the enemies want to use on you, like a Lash ult or a Dynamo ult if you pop the Infernus ult beforehand. So it's pretty good, but not A-tier material, I would say. And then Viscus is another stunny boy, and he is a lot less telegraphed with his stuns, especially if you're good at piloting the goo ball, and he's able to stun people multiple times, especially if you use it in the right position. This is really the ultimate disruption ultimate, because he can run around and just chain stun multiple different people throughout a team fight. He's pretty tanky too, although certainly not unkillable during the goo ball, but the other major strength of the goo ball is its mobility. You can use it to escape from a sticky situation, or you can use it to charge in and make a lot of space for your team, so it is very versatile in that regard. There are a lot of good things about it, but unfortunately, if the enemies are good at using their movement skills, it can be very tough to actually land a stun on them, and also, of course, it doesn't really do that much damage. Sure, if you're building heavy into the goo ball, you can still definitely kill the enemies with the goo ball, but it's not the most consistent form of damage in the world, so there are some limitations to it, but still a very good ultimate that I would put at the top of B tier. Calico's ultimate is basically just a way stronger ethereal shift. She is able to go invincible for a couple of seconds, and she deals a burst of damage on entering the invincibility and exiting the invincibility. And she also gets some pretty sweet buffs when she leaves it if she's upgraded her ultimate, including getting all of her ability cooldowns back with the tier 3, which is very strong indeed. So it's definitely useful for a lot of situations. That invincibility period is just crazy, and it's part of her classic burst combo. But in terms of the scope of actually dealing damage and disrupting people, I mean, it's pretty limited. You can use it in your burst combo on one person, and then, it doesn't really do much else outside of that. So it's really strong for its intended purpose, but similar to Wraith, it's not the game-changing ultimate that some of the ults we'll talk about later are. And finally, the Drifter. He's got a very powerful AoE blind. He can afflict multiple people with a debuff that makes it pretty much impossible to see anything going on around them. And this is just devastating. It completely breaks coordination within a team, and it makes those vulnerable targets extremely easy to kill because they won't see your attack coming. But they're not totally helpless. They can still use all of their abilities, they can still shoot, and so if you are up close and personal with somebody, it doesn't actually do that much, and they can still very easily kill you if they are actually prepared. So it's, a difficult thing to counter. You can't really cleanse it with anything, and it gets guaranteed value as a result. But at the same time, it is disruptive, but it's not so disruptive that the enemies are completely helpless. So that's why I've decided to put it in B tier and not any higher. Now we get to move on to the A tier, where we have a bunch of ultimates that are genuinely just really powerful. Starting with Paige's ultimate, which is one of the best support ults in the game. It's a stun, damage, and healing tool all wrapped up into one, and a well-positioned Paige can completely change the course of a fight by using her ultimate to rejuvenate her team, damage the enemies, and stun enemies out of their own very powerful ultimates. It can be used as a counterplay tool, and it can also be used to just give her team a really powerful boost that can overwhelm the enemies. So there are a lot of ways that you can use this, and you can even snipe it across the map to help teammates that are super far away. And when you do that, you actually end up with a stronger ultimate. So with some good coordination, this can be very, very powerful. Next up, we have Yamato's ultimate, which is one of the best ultimates for just hulking up and going in. This ultimate gives her a lot of damage reduction. It gives her all of her cooldowns back and makes their abilities work faster, and then she's also crowd control immune. That makes Yamato's ultimate one of the best ultimates in the game for securing the rejuvenator crystals in a team fight, because she cannot be parried. And so she can just go in, parry the enemies, punch, and not really worry about getting stunned, which is absolutely huge. And it also just makes her a massive threat in any fight that you take on. If you try to 1v1 a Yamato and she has her ultimate, you are taking on a serious risk. So yeah, she is very, very powerful in that regard. And the same is true for Warden. He's got a really, really good ultimate for going in during team fights. It gives him a lot of extra damage, a lot of extra healing, and you can use the initial channeling period where he gets a ton of resistances and unstoppable with an upgrade. You can block a ton of ultimates that would otherwise be completely devastating, and you'll be almost totally fine, which is really invaluable. So yeah, Warden, similar to Yamato, can just go in and wreak havoc. And then we have some kidnap and pick ultimates with Holiday, Paradox, and Mo, whose ultimates all kind of fill a similar niche. Holiday is able to go in and kidnap someone, disabling them for a few seconds and repositioning them to an absolutely terrible position. And this is really great at isolating one target and just getting them killed. And the mobility is both kind of a blessing and a curse, because it allows her to reposition them much more effectively than something like Mo and Krill's ultimate, but it can also make it harder for her teammates to hit them with their abilities, so it's a little bit of a trade-off, and it's limited to just one person. Paradox's ultimate can grab multiple people with the tier 3, and that is absolutely a game changer. But she also risks putting herself in a terrible position while doing that, so she has to be careful with it, but it can still absolutely change the course of a game. And then Mo Krill ult, this one's kind of obvious. He locks someone down for multiple seconds. You see the enemy team's carry, you just completely take them out of the fight for a couple of seconds and have your entire team focus them. It's really just that simple. And he gets bonus health for doing it, which is something that the other kidnap ultimates can't really say the same. And then Grey Talon. He's able to get a ton of spirit power by stacking up kills with his ultimate. And his ult, well, it has map-wide coverage. Nowhere is safe from Grey Talon. He can use some good coordination with his team to snipe kills from across the map and, well, secure kills that other characters would really struggle to do. Especially if you build into the bird, it can execute people and be absolutely devastating, and if that doesn't work, you can also use it to stun and disrupt other ultimates. So it has a lot of utility and it has a lot of strength that synergizes with Grey Talon's kit, so it ultimate is an easy A tier in my book. Graves' ultimate is interesting because it has a lot of counterplay, but it also puts so much pressure onto the enemies and changes how you have to fight on the battlefield, because it summons just a metric crap ton of minions. Now you can try to fly around and use the high ground to counter these minions, but they will still be pushing your objectives, and a lot of characters will struggle to actually deal with these minions, either because they don't have a lot of good area of effect and minion clearing, or they don't have a lot of mobility, and so this ends up creating a lot of pressure. And the enemies can try to go for the tombstone, but that'll usually put them in a bad position as a result, and it opens them up to being parried, which is basically a death sentence, getting parried next to a tombstone. So this just creates a lot of pressure, especially the lower down in elo you go. This is a menacing ult for people who aren't Eternus, so it absolutely has to go into A tier, next to Rem. Now Rem is a character with a very, very special ultimate, because he can use his ultimate through walls to disable the enemies, putting them to sleep and making them take a massive amount of damage when they wake up, assuming you've got some spirit scaling. This is an incredible disruption tool, and with the later tiers he becomes unstoppable, so he can use it to potentially counterplay other ultimates that are coming to stun him. The only problem with this sleep is that it's not quite the same as a stun. Once they take a certain amount of damage, they will wake back up and it won't crowd control them for as long as a stun. But on the flip side, if you leave them alone, then you can use this ultimate to basically just take someone out of the fight for several seconds, which is really powerful. It's very versatile, and the fact that you can cast it through walls and set someone up for an easy kill for your team is just absolutely absurd. So this is a really, really strong ultimate, but it is telegraphed, so you can counterspell it and you can use other means to stop yourself from being slept. And similar to Remult, at the top of A tier we have Jacob Lash, the man himself. Lash's ult is utterly iconic. If we were just going off of vibes, this is an S tier ultimate. But we are looking at the actual practicality, and Lash's ultimate is indeed one of the strongest in the game for displacing enemies and setting potentially an entire team up for being completely wiped. This is incredible, no doubt about it. The main issue with Lash's ult is that it is the most telegraphed ultimate in the entire game. He gives you a lot of time to react, and there are many ways you can counter it. By positioning smartly, by a wall, by cover, you can actually stop yourself from being pulled or mitigate how disastrous it is if he's already locked onto you. Counterspell is obviously the big way to counter Lash's ult, and Ethereal Shift, Cube, Pocket's Briefcase, stuff like that can all be used to counter it as well. It doesn't actually lock you down and prevent movement abilities like Rem's ult does during that initial channeling period, so there are many ways that you can escape or otherwise evade Lash's ultimate, and that's what prevents it from being an S tier, is the fact that it is so easily countered in so many ways. But with the element of surprise, with good positioning, this is still an ultimate that can easily win your team the game, so it is still really, really powerful, top of A tier material, no doubt. And finally, we have the S tier. These are the best ultimates in the entire game, and they pack a serious punch. These will win your team the game if used responsibly. And at the bottom of S tier, we have Magician's ultimate, which is a tough ultimate to place, because Magician just copies other ultimates, and so he's really dependent on what the enemies actually have in order for his ultimate to succeed. But there's usually at least one or two good ultimates that he can steal in any given match. And Sinclair's strength is the fact that he can use any of these ultimates that are also in S tier. He can grab a Dynamo ult, a Doorman ult, a Pocket ultimate, and if his ultimate is maxed out, they are going to be absolutely devastated. And also, of course, his ultimate cooldown is substantially lower than every other character in the game. He is able to take Dynamo's ultimate and use 2 Dynamo ults for every 1 ult that Dynamo actually gets, which is... I don't know. It's dumbfounding game design, in my opinion, but that's how it works. And so, yeah, just that sheer fact alone means that ultimately Sinclair's ult is an S tier ult, because he can just use all of the other S tier ults of the game. Silver's ultimate is next, and she is a character I despise, because whenever someone uses Silver ult against me, they are the strongest character in the game. Whenever I play Silver, I can't even build the ultimate up in time before I die, but that's just a skill issue. Silver's ultimate is undoubtedly strong. It gives her a huge huge burst of health and turns her into an absolute machine that is super tanky, has great mobility, and has a ton of damage. And she also comes with a disarm too. She's got some really good crowd control during this thing. So she basically just hulks out into a werewolf and goes berserk. And even if she dies, she usually ends up taking down a couple enemies with her, which is an absolutely positive trade and can set her team up to win the game. It is super duper strong in the right hands. Kelvin is up next, and his ultimate is just bonkers. He is able to create an impervious dome that cannot be broken by anything. If you're inside the dome, you're trapped. If you're outside the dome, you cannot help the people within. This is useful for so many things. He can use it to save his team from otherwise devastating ultimates, like a Lash ult. He can just dome multiple of his team, protect them, and also give them a ton of healing. He can also use his ultimate to trap enemies in. They cannot escape, and if he's got teammates inside there to help him, the enemies are as good as dead. But the other super powerful thing about Kelvin's ult is that it can freeze objectives. If he needs to buy critical time for his team to stall the patron, stall a walker take, stall the mid-boss, he can do it. He's the only character in the game with that power, and that is just insanely strong. So there's no doubt Kelvin's ult is an S-tier ult. After that, well, we've got Victor, the character with the new longest ult cooldown in the game, and for good reason. Victor's ultimate gives him a second life. When he goes down, he will, after a brief casting period, restore himself and stun everybody in the area for a massive amount of damage and for a really long time. And once he gets the tier 3, this ultimate doesn't actually have that long of a cooldown, which is just crazy. Why is he allowed to do that? And so the amount of pressure and the amount of space that this ultimate is able to create is second to none. He can go in like just an absolute maniac, do so much damage, die, and then just keep going. And if Victor also has a rejuvenator, it's just game over. Like, what are you going to do? You have to kill this man 3 times to finally put him down for good. That's overwhelming, and so it's another easy S tier. And then we've got Pocket's ultimate. Pocket's ultimate is kind of a sleeper ultimate if you're just looking at it with no upgrades. It does, a good bit of tickle damage. That's kind of it. But once you upgrade it to the tier 3, that's where this ultimate goes from probably, B, A tier to S tier. Because Pocket's ultimate can shut down all healing. No healing for anybody affected by this, and it is really hard to cleanse. You can cleanse Pocket's ult with a Divine Barrier, but how many characters are actually going to buy that? And even if you are playing a Paige or a Kelvin or a Dynamo, and you're going for that full support build, you can only Divine Barrier one person. What happens if Pocket gets a lot of range, and they put the ultimate on 3, 4, 5 people? Well, the entire team is just not going to be able to heal, and that means that they are extremely vulnerable. And this ultimate ramps up really well into the late game. It does so much damage past that, 20-30 minute mark. So it's a really, really powerful ramping ultimate that is devastating, especially in the late game, which is when you need your ultimates to be impactful. So this is just really, really good. And then, is this the most infuriating ult in the game? It might be. Doorman's ultimate. Oh, yuck. This is another ultimate that is technically limited in scope. You can only put one person in the Baroness, but putting someone in the Baroness is insanely powerful, especially with all the crowd control tools that Doorman is packing. He's able to put someone wildly out of position and then trap them in the Baroness, and that's usually a death sentence. Or if there's an enemy carry or an enemy ultimate that's really powerful and you want to shut it down, you can just put them in timeout for several seconds. And if they fail to leave the Baroness, the consequences are devastating. They will take a ton of damage, they will be stunned, and they will give Doorman his ultimate cooldown back. He'll be able to use that thing again in like 10 seconds. Which, what other ultimate in the game can you do that with? I guess you can technically change Shiv ult, but it's not the same. It's not even remotely the same. So the crowd control potential of this ultimate is just through the roof. It's kind of, you can almost think of it as like another pick ult, but on steroids, especially when you combine it with the door, with the luggage cart, and all of Doorman's tools at his disposal. So this is just really mean, really brutal. I hate it, and it's an S tier ult. And then, come on. I feel like if this is not at the top of every ultimate tier list, then what are we even doing here? It's Dynamo ult, man. It's Singularity. This is the ultimate that previously had the longest ult cooldown in the game before they nerfed Victor again. And, for absolutely good reason, too. Like, this ultimate just wins games. It just wins games. If you're playing Dynamo, and you are smart and coordinated, and you hit a couple of people with the singularity, it's game over. It's game over as long as your team has the follow-up. You trap people, you lock them down, you stop them from doing everything for 3-4 seconds, sometimes even longer than that if you go super late game and you've got Unstoppable. And with Refresher, he can do that again, which is a very common strategy on Dynamo. So you have these two singularities. They lock people down for an eternity, multiple people, which is something no other pick ult can do. And I mean, you just have your team lay into them. It's brutal. It's devastating. It is so gosh darn powerful. It completely changes how you have to approach every single fight if you're on the enemy team facing off against this ultimate. That's how devastating it really is. It's the ultimate game changer. And so for that reason, it's gotta be the best ultimate in the entire game. But anyways, that's going to do it for this tier list, so let me know what you think about my opinions in the comments section down below, and again, make sure to keep things respectful. You don't want to take this too seriously. It's an opinion tier list on the internet. I don't want to see any vitriol. You just look like a weirdo if you do that. But yeah, like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here and you want to see more content like this, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.